I'm going to start with congratulations for not crashing the Ferrari.
Oh, thank you.
You know what I mean? I think you guys have done it again. And I wish that the third movie was coming out next week.
See you in a year.
Listen, I got about 1,000 questions. Let's be serious. So you guys know that I'm a fan of when you're directing.
Yes.
And since the two of you are sitting here, I need to ask, what is the next project you are directing?
We trying not to commit ourselves to anything. We're very excited about a bunch of our future projects. We're particularly excited about Project Hail Mary, which once we get through the various strikes and get all that buttoned up, we're hoping to get to work on it.
So that is probably your next project that you will
I'm looking at Chris because he's more responsible than I am.
Obviously there's a lot to figure out, but it's looking that way.
My one other thing before getting into the movie, there's been talk of a live action Spider Noir series.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious, is that actually something that's really moving forward? Is it?
Yes.
It is, or at least it was until the writer's strike and everything shut down. But once that gets resolved, we'll get back into it, but it's coming along nicely.
Is there any chance Nick Cage will be involved?
There is any chance.
So the first film was called Into the Spider-Verse. Mm-hmm. The sequel is Across the Spider-Verse. Yes. And the third one is Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
I have realized that these are very literal titles. And now that I've seen the second movie, so does Beyond the Spider-Verse is there any chance that any of these characters will be seen in live action because it's Beyond the Spider-Verse?
Well, I will say that what's special about this film is the fact that we can represent worlds in unique styles, and every world looks like a different artist's hand, and the animation style and everything about it is unique and bespoke for each world that it goes into. And so that that could be anything, but the movie itself was in live action, then you wouldn't be able to take advantage of all of that. That said, all things are possible in the multiverse.
Well, I mean, because I don't want to get specific, but there are moments in this movie that exist in a small pocket, if you will.
Right.
So that's why I was wondering if Beyond could mean a small pocket of live action.
Right. It means a lot of things, but it also means, we see a sort of map representation of the known Spider-Verse, but there are things that can exist outside of that web of life and destiny, if you will.
So one of the things, obviously, the first film is a huge hit. People love it. People are going to love this movie. And I know that the studio loves the fact that these movies are incredible, and that I would imagine after the third one, basically what I'm asking is, do you think that more spin-offs and other offshoots or other movies will continue, or do you envision this as just a three-chapter installment?
Well, one chapter at a time. I think it's obvious that there's infinite possibilities. The only thing that's finite is the amount of energy that we all have.
Right. These things are very exhausting, hugely ambitious, and take a lot of people working really hard and dedicating themselves to doing something new and special. And so after each one, we're also exhausted, and knowing that we have another one, that we have to finish is daunting in its own way, because we want to make sure that it's as excellent as those that came before it, and surprising and new and unlike anything you've ever seen before. So, thinking about Beyond doing this trilogy is quite terrifying.
That's a good title, though. Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Indeed.
So listen, I'm so curious about the writing process, putting these. How did it end up with two films? Was it one of these things where in the development process you realize, oh my God, this is such a huge story, we want two films? Or was the studio whispering a little bit, hey, we'd love to?
It really was because the story we were working on, we realized later than we should have that we were trying to jam two movies into one movie. And we realized that there was what became this film was its own full movie. It had a beginning, middle, and end. Miles starts one way, and he comes, full circle and is a different person who's grown up and has a completely different attitude by the end of it. Gwen and her father have a beginning, middle, and end. All the characters have an arc. And so it felt like, oh, this is a whole movie, but we're trying to jam another movie to the end of it. And so listening to the film itself is what made us realize, oh, this is the second part of a trilogy. And so we decided to make that move, and I think it was for the best because it wouldn't allow us to like dig in on this it
made the movie better,
level, right?
Yeah.
How happy was Tom Rothman and everyone at the studio when you said, "I think we need to make 2"?
I'd say that they embraced the idea,
but they weren't super excited about the fact that we said we were going to need more time.
Yeah, they didn't love that part.
They loved the idea of it coming out last year more, but
they've been incredibly supportive and have always, known that the brand of these films is innovation and surprise, and they have to be like magnificently rendered, and they've always given us what we need to pull that off.
Oh, I give the studio, first of all, I want to thank every animator, every single person who worked on this movie and the first movie for making, I was going to curse, awesome stuff, but also the studio for allowing, the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that the animators have so much of themselves in this movie, and that is so unique in Hollywood.
Literally, they're like, filming themselves, like doing all of the acting, and then composite like 5 versions of themselves because there's 5 characters in a scene.
Right, and then they use that as reference for, to get the really nuanced moments of acting that they're trying to get. There's so much love that everyone puts into it, and they know that they have the freedom to make something special, and that if it's going to enhance the story and tell the story more effectively, then it's going to get in. So like giving the artist the power and freedom is exciting and liberating, and you get so much better work out of it.
Did you have are there characters in movie 3 that are not in movie 1 and 2? Like, do you have a lot of new characters?
Yes. That is the answer.
Believe it or not, you thought that you've seen every Spider person.
Believe it, we saved several.
But not every Spider person we can imagine.
Right. I'm so curious. When you guys were writing this, did you end up going down some paths that were like, you thought, oh, this is definitely where we're going to go, and then you realized, oh, this sucks. We cannot do this. We need to.
There was that scene, we tried like 10 versions of it. It never got great. It was always good. And so we found a better way to do that.
Right.
But I still miss the milieu of that thing. And
it's like a phantom limb.
We'll try to work it into the next one.
And there's a lot. The story evolved a lot. The character set and the journey that Miles goes on. The specifics, the villain itself. Spot wasn't where we started, but it was something that Avi Arad actually pitched us, and we're like, the Spot? That's the dorkiest, dumbest villain.
He's like, no, he's got a really cool power.
People don't realize how powerful he is, and then we came back around going like, oh yeah, that people don't realize how powerful he is, and obviously the fact that he has these portals was relevant. We're like, well, wouldn't it be interesting to take a person who is overlooked as dumb and feels left out and lonely and wants to prove themselves, the same arc that Miles is going on, but the dark version of it. And we were like, oh, we probably should have listened to him instead of dismissing him the way everyone dismisses the Spot.
That's actually, it's funny. I was going to ask you, how did Spot come about? But did you have another villain that was going to be the villain of both films? Or was it one of these, like, was it a long struggle to get to that point where who is going to be a good enough antagonist to carry over for 2 movies?
Well, at one point we did have a third or a second antagonist that was kind of like facilitating and magnifying Spot's dilemma, and ultimately like it just was too far afield from the story.
The things you care about, like you can't get away from Miles or Gwen for very long in this movie, or you kind of like it decays every second you're away from one of them.
Like once you start following one of these characters into scenes that don't have Miles or Gwen in them, it makes it really tough.
Right. But what was interesting was we're like, can we pull off making Spot like a formidable foe? And it wasn't really until the animation and the lighting came in for his sort of full transformation, and we're like, oh yeah, this is going to work. This is even better than what we were hoping for.
One of the things about the antagonist is you need to make it a believable that this person can actually win, but then you need to come up with how the heroes are going to defeat the antagonist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we paint ourselves in a corner and then have to figure a way out. That's the best way to write anyway.
Right. So my question is, did you figure out during the writing process, were you sort of like, we're just going to make him as badass as we can. Let's figure out how we're going to beat him later. Or did you come up with that full arc before it all? You see what I mean?
We actually do know how we're going to beat him.
Yes. But
it's very unexpected.
Right. But we painted ourselves in the corner, and it's a fun feeling to be like, oh, now what do we do? Because let's make him as unstoppable as possible, and then you're like, oh, but now we have to figure out how to stop him. And we banged our heads against it. And then some of the scenes that are in the third one are like based on our conversations of like, well, how do you punch a hole? Do you know what I mean?
How do you punch a hole?
How do you kick a hole? It can't be done.
No, did this? I didn't ask the directors. Did this film have a lot of deleted scenes, or was it pretty much because of animation and the cost, it gets stopped pretty early on?
No, there are many deleted scenes. There's 2 that come to mind. I'm sure there are more.
Are they close? Are they like animated or like rough animation?
We never got all the way into animation on any of them. I don't think we got pretty far into the camera department.
There are moments that are animated, like little beats and moments that have been trimmed out. But obviously, the finished product is so hard and so time and labor consuming that the finished stuff, almost all of the finished stuff is in the thing. A couple of minutes.
There are a few like things with like Spot with an ATM, like running around New York City,
right?
That got animated very, very early before we rewrote that scene, and they are somewhere.
So you're in production. The movie's coming out in a year. You realize the scene doesn't work. I need to rewrite it, or we need to rewrite it.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you actually rewrite it and getting it animated, what is the shortest human amount of time from writing something?
I will tell
animated?
I'll tell you because we just went through it.
It was we did some rewrites on this film about 2 months before it was finished, and we
added about 3 minutes. Like 3 minutes to a scene.
Right. And wrote it, did a storyboard, got the actors to voice it. We were in a real rush because we were near the end of the production.
I think we basically skipped the storyboard.
Right.
And we even skipped the camera.
Oh, you're right. We were using...
We went straight to... we went straight to... Right. We just basically paused... we took still frames of previously animated shots,
right,
and a few old boards, and threw new dialogue on top of them, and then just sent it straight into animation.
Right, and then it was animated very quickly and lit very quickly, and it all came together,
within about
quickly.
8 weeks.
Yeah, 2 months, which was like pretty impossible. It's not sustainable to do that on a larger scale, but it is sort of if you've already got the setup and the lighting and everything figured out. You're like, okay, we need to do a different version of the scene because it needs to be better. And everybody's already deep into what they're doing. That's about as fast as humanly possible.
And updates were coming in while we were on the last color timing day. We were ingesting new versions of lighting.
Can I ask what scene this was, or why did you want to rewrite this scene?
There's several moments, but I'd say that one of the things is the thing that surprises us all the time is the audience. You think you're writing a movie that's about conflict, right? But what the audience really are hungry for is agreement and watching people achieve a kind of harmony. And so the frequently at the end of movies, that same thing happened on the last one, we are adding moments to show characters in some version of harmony. And it's the thing that's the most spectacular thing you can experience in a movie theater is not people fighting, but people getting along. and you always forget to put it in.
Put a little note card on your computer for movie 3.
You know what? We do, and it's
then
still...
we still forget to do it.
Anytime we get stuck in a scene, we just try to like, all right, what if everyone in the scene was just trying really hard to be nice to each other? And even though they're having different points of view, they're trying to express love for one another.
Were there any things that you wanted to put in this movie or in movie 3 that you ran into rights issues where you just couldn't get the rights, or because of the success of the first film, everyone is sort of like, oh, I want to be in this?
We got pretty lucky with rights things. There's still some rights things to figure out for movie 3.
There are countervailing forces. Yes, people are excited to be associated with success, but also they think that success should also shine onto them. So it winds up being sort of a push. And we were able to get just about everything that we were hoping for.
How did you decide what the main characters were going to be in this film? And was it almost other characters? Was there another character that came really close to being one of the protagonists?
Well, the main character set came out of what Miles' journey was. And the story sort of dictated where he needed to go, and the characters that sort of came out of like what he needed to learn along the way. Spider-Punk was a obvious choice to sort of be the counter to sort of Miguel's worldview, and to be someone who seems like he might be an antagonist but ends up being an ally. And we needed a character, and he sort of perfectly fit all the things that we needed for that.
But he
for Miles' story.
Almost didn't make the picture.
Right. And then Pavitra exists because when we wanted Miles to go to another dimension for the very first time, we wanted to feel like Dorothy coming to Oz. As radical as being in black and white to color, we wanted, like, what's a place that makes Miles' world seem like tame by comparison? The idea of doing like a Mumbai meets Manhattan, super colorful, loud, busy world. We're like, oh, Spider-Man India is perfect for that. And then Pavitra can represent sort of something that teaches Miles something as well. And so all of the characters came out of the story, and it was sort of organic to what we needed. And anytime you try to add something artificially, you're like, oh, this is a cool character, but they don't have any function. They just fade away into the background.
I am so curious about like canon points and things that like make Spider-Man Spider-Man. The film feels more adult than the first movie because Miles is growing up. Can you sort of talk about balancing those heavy moments with everything else?
Right. I mean, I've never seen a great dramatic film that didn't make me laugh, or like a great comedy that didn't make me cry. So I think that we don't really think those things are very inconsistent. I think we're just trying to, I guess. We weren't like, oh, let's tell a darker story, but I do think like let's tell a more a richer and more sophisticated story, because you've already done the work of setting up these characters, so it actually gives you a little bit more freedom because the audience are with you.
Yeah, and I think obviously, as you said, Miles is growing up and maturing, and the film needs to reflect the vibe that he has. So. It's sort of natural, and we're trying to make this film feel like the most epic and most important thing in Miles' life. The first movie was the most important thing that ever happened to Miles up to that point, and then now we have to do something even more.
We were trying
important.
not to tell a story about the second most important thing that happened.
Right, so it has to feel
Miles.
extra important, and there is this sort of feeling of like the weight of feeling imprisoned by what people who are sort of trapped by nostalgia. And canon think is necessary to tell a story, and we everything that we do, we're always trying to find a new way to tell a story that feels like it honors the thing that we love so much. And obviously, this is a character in a universe that we deeply love.
Also, growing up is complicated, and your relationship with your parents gets complicated.
The older you get,
yeah, and like. It's not so authoritarian after a while. You have to meet as equals. And that makes it, that's a big adjustment for them.
Yes. On that note, I need to stop. I'm just going to say congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
And I wish I could see movie 3 tomorrow.